It was a sad night for Thomas the Tank Engine. His driver was retiring from his work on the railway. Thomas and his firemen were very sad and sorry to see him go, after all the good times they had. They were to attend a retirement party at Ffarquar. Thomas's driver promised that he would come and see Thomas if he could, and that made Thomas feel a little better about things, but not by much. At the end of the party, Thomas took his driver and family home to Wellsworth. Sir Topham Hatt could see that Thomas was upset to see his driver leave the railway and move on with his life.
"Cheer up, Thomas," he said. "I'll have a new driver for you ready to start work tomorrow."
"Thank you, sir,"
Thomas said. He was hoping that his new driver would be just as good as he thought, but I'm sorry to say that he wasn't as good as Thomas thought he was. The next morning, Thomas's firemen took the new driver to the sheds to get Thomas ready for work. Thomas left the sheds to start his jobs for the day. Thomas's first job was to collect milk tankers from the dairy and take to the harbor. Thomas's driver drove Thomas to the water column before collecting the milk.
"Stop,"
said the dairy worker. "That's not water, that's
milk!"
Thomas said in a disgusted tone. Toby took Thomas to Titmuth to get the milk out, and Rosie took the milk for Thomas. As Thomas had all the milk taken out of his tanks, he had just finished filling up with fresh, clean water. Thomas's driver forgot to put the brakes on, and Thomas's regulator was set to make him go backwards. And before he knew it, Thomas backed down and smashed into the buffers and into the coal.
"Botheration!"
moaned Thomas. Percy brought the breakdown train to get Thomas back on the rails. As Thomas was being pulled back onto the rails, he told Percy all about his driver.
"Your driver is a jinx, Thomas,"
Percy teased.
"Stuff and nonsense, Percy. My driver's just having a bad day, that's all." "Are you sure? Because he is a bit clumsy. He did load you up with milk and forget about the brakes and the regulator."
Thomas and his firemen were beginning to agree with Percy on the subject of the new driver being a jinx. Next morning, Thomas was pulling his first passenger train into Maithwaite. As his driver came down from the cab to use the station bathroom, he dropped a piece of paper. It landed on Thomas's running board. His fireman picked it up and was surprised. "Look at this, Thomas," said the fireman. And he showed Thomas the paper. It was a painting of a steam engine chuffing down the line of passengers. It looked wonderful.
"Bust my buffers!"
exclaimed Thomas.
"That's fantastic artwork."
"We should show Sir Topham Hatt," said the fireman.
"We should,"
agreed Thomas.
"He'll find just the sort of job that Jinx needs."
Thomas pulled into Knapford Station, and Sir Topham Hatt was standing on the platform.
"Please, sir," said Thomas, "my fireman and I have something to show you."
The fireman handed Sir Topham Hatt the artwork, and he was lost for words.
"Why, this artwork is just what we need for our railway posters,"
he said.
"Edwin, come into my office at once. Edwin, your artwork is just what we need for our railway posters. I want you to drop your position as an engine driver and become an artist for the railway."
"Why, thank you, sir," said the driver. "It's my pleasure to share my art of all the people on Sodor." Thomas's new driver became the artist for the railway's posters. and Thomas and his firemen were given a brand new driver, who was more responsible and not as clumsy as the previous one. But Thomas and his firemen have something to remember the old driver by, and that was a piece of art showing Thomas in the countryside pulling Annie and Clarabelle. Whenever Thomas wanted to look at the artwork, it made him feel like a really useful engine.